Q. I am your host, Q, coming to you live from my mother's basement. We have a jam packed episode for you, a very special guest tonight. Those of you who have been keeping up with our channel may know this familiar face. You may be familiar with his work. My good friend, Ulric Patillo. Ulric, welcome back.
Hey dude, how's it going? It's nice to be out here with you late at night, sipping on some tea, with the wind blowing at 30 miles an hour outside. It's kind of fun.
Oh, so it's like really windy by you, also, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
I got a phone call from an out of town neighbor saying that their alarm went off and they thought that they were like, "Is it really windy?" I was like, "Insanely windy." And they asked me to go and like, "Can you just make sure the house didn't get broken into?" But we think the wind like pushed our door open. And sure enough, I go. The front gate is broken, not broken into. You could literally tell that this was just a gust of wind so strong that actually broke a gate door. So
Yeah,
that's what
we're
we're dealing with in
we're
Southern
pretty privileged
California.
in Cali.
I
We're
mean,
not used to that out here.
no. I mean, I don't even know where it was. Someone posted something where it was like, "Oh, Nashville. Shout out Rod, shout out Bitcoin Park." Apparently it's warm today in Nashville. Cannot say the same here in SoCal. So all of a sudden that move to SoCal is looking better and better each day, or to Nashville is looking better and better each day. But I digress. Ulrich, you and I host the Bitcoin Ballers podcast together that we launched our first episode last week. We will have another episode coming out tomorrow. But tonight, we'll talk a little bit of basketball. We'll get there in a little bit. But until then, let's talk some Bitcoin. And I want to start first on just when was the first time you ever heard about Bitcoin?
Yeah, man. I think I was exposed to Bitcoin initially in 2017, sort of with the spike in all those in all the cryptocurrencies. Me and my coworkers were sort of looking at those numbers, and some of them even had some Bitcoin. And I was looking for the next big coin. And my rationale was like, okay, if Bitcoin is the cryptocurrency for the United States, then I would say, oh, okay, well, looks like Tron is going to be the cryptocurrency for China. And it was like, it's like a half a penny. And I was just, oh, like, yeah, buy the, it's gonna shoot up like Bitcoin. Bitcoin 15,000, 10,000. That's too much money. So, then it fell, and then it fell like right after, I think, January. I forgot about it. My dad started talking about it again in 2020. He basically told me, he's very libertarian. He's very anti-Federal Reserve, and he kind of just started talking to me about that. He said it's pretty much the most important investment you're going to have to make. And it was like he never really talked to me about investments, so I kind of said, well, why is he talking to me about this? So I had some money, invested some. It started going up, and in dollar value, I started saying, well, what the heck is this? So 2020 was, I got in just for the gains. But 2021 came around, I started reading, started listening, learning. And I realized that even though it, hit an all-time high, but what's more important is that my perspective hit an all-time change. And I was so compelled by listening to the likes of Michael Saylor, by the likes of the people that worked at Bitcoin Magazine, the people that meme online. There's a meaning behind those things, and it compelled me to try to contribute as much as I could in my own way. And I had an inkling to write, and fast forward about 2 years later, have a couple websites and a dozen published articles, and I still got ideas to push. And so I love it. It's a good thing. I write to share my passion with my friends and family, and people that I meet along the way at these conferences and at meetups. It's a great thing.
So there's a lot we got to unpack. I mean, your story is not uncommon. I'm not picking on you in any way.
Nope.
A lot of Bitcoiners go through that journey of, wait, but like, what about ETH? What about Doge? What about whatever it is? And it's this idea of like, what can make me rich? What can I make a lot of money off of? And I think there's an important part of your story that, if there's any shitcoiner, and I don't mean to say that in a way to make you feel bad. Just, there is one cryptocurrency, and then there's everything else, in my opinion. And I think at this point you would agree with that statement. But I'd love to maybe explore early Ulrich for a second, if we can. This idea that, oh, Tron could be the Bitcoin of China or whatever. Like, what was your shitcoin to choice?
Yeah, honestly, it was Tron. I'll never forget it. I was sitting there, and it made me feel smart because I picked it up right before it shot up to, I'll never forget, 17 cents. I still look back at say, oh wow, like it just spiked, and then it was like uh, it was like a blip on the radar, and it never went there again. And I always, I was thinking about, well, why did that happen? And it's funny, people who get into these cryptocurrencies, a lot of them will talk about their experience that they had with its dollar gains, and they won't even know why it increased in value. But they know that it did. That was their experience. And so, therefore, that was a good experience, and they want to find a way to replicate it again. And that's nice and everything, that one discrete experience where it rises. But the problem with that is that it's not a sustainable way of life. I mean, we've always heard the analogy about the casino, the crypto casino. Well, yeah, I love playing poker. I love playing
Ooh,
craps.
ooh. Okay, wait. Like, what's your? You have $1,000. You just showed up to Vegas. What is the first thing you're doing?
The crap table. I actually like playing online poker. I will play a little bit of poker in Vegas, but I rather play online or in a house game.
Have you ever won money playing poker at a casino?
Yes,
Uh, you must be a very good, and I don't say this lightly. You must be a very good poker player, because to
I
go to
don't.
a casino
Yeah,
and play poker, that's a
I
whole other beast.
I don't, and I don't want to brag. I know TC is pretty
Brag.
good, and one day I'll maybe get on a table with him with a friendly game. Meditation man, shout out to you. Get that time chain calendar fixed. There's a couple of blocks with no prices there. We've been talking, but yeah, no. Going back to poker, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think I've been in the casino very, very little. I like the online style, but the last four times I went to a casino, I had cashed out in a tournament. So, not to say that I'm getting first place, but if it's a 12-man tournament, I got second place. If it was a 30-man tournament, I
Heck
got
yeah.
fourth. And then another time it was maybe a 50-person tournament. I think I got third. So, I like it. It's a quantitative thing. It's a risk kind of game. I think it comes to me naturally. It's fun. But yeah, I guess going back to the crypto casino, it's like that feeling. I would say wouldn't relate it to poker, but I would relate it more to craps, or even more so a
Just
slot machine.
like gambling in general, though.
Yeah,
It's this
it's like
idea
that
that,
slot
oh,
machine feel, and it's like you hit it and you think you did something special, and really those cryptocurrencies, the only thing that it's very similar to the social to these services that we have out there. They are using you as exit liquidity. You happen to find a lucky opportunity at the time that you got in, and you think you did something smart. Michael Saylor did compared this to when the COVID crash happened in the stock market. People start pouring money into everything, and
hey,
you
I was
think that
smart.
yeah. But it's like you think you're smart because, oh yeah, like look at me, I bought the dip. Meanwhile, knowing that the Federal Reserve was going, the Fed was going to bail everything out, and so you're essentially, you think that because you gained 30% on a cruise liner, that you think you're a brilliant person. It's not the same as the mindset that Bitcoiners have in understanding the change that the world is going through right now, as fiat is showing all different types of death or near death symptoms. And the mainstream media will do everything they can to make sure that you essentially are the exit liquidity for them whenever they change their system. A great reset, transferring to CBDCs, making declaring hyperinflation like Lebanon happened. They want to make sure that you have your money there so that when they can declare it worthless, um, that you're the victim and that they get off scot-free, the elite. And so Bitcoin, and it protects us. That's the biggest utility for Bitcoin, in my opinion, is its security from theft and coercion. And we need to, we don't need to do anything. Bitcoin is going to persist regardless of whether we say anything or not. But the catch is that if you care about the people around you, you need to help them realize the indicators that are out there that the media that they trust so much essentially sweeps it under the rug, gives an excuse, tells you to look away. There's nothing to see here, like the blinker in Men in Black. It's a shame. And so many, and luckily for us, meaning the world, not just you and me, forget exit liquidity. I'm not exiting, but it's that we have more and more people waking up to the lies that are spouted on a daily basis. You have to turn the radio off and the TV off because they're just going to lie to you. Yeah.
I want to talk about this idea of exit liquidity because, for new people coming in, that may be a very scary phrase and it may just go over their head. Um, let's define that and let's talk about that because I think we've seen countless examples of that just in the last 6 months of some of these scam coins, if we can just say it like that, like I'll call Celsius token a scam, Luna, Terra, all that just a pure scam. And we'll talk a little bit in a moment about some of the stuff coming out in the SEC report specific to Luna, Terra, that honestly make people like Sam Bankman-Fried and Alex Mashinsky look like angels compared to Do Kwon. Like that's how bad some of the stuff coming out there is, and then FTT as well. Like the whole debacle between CZ and Alameda when CZ was publicizing on Twitter that they're going to liquidate FTT tokens that they hold, like that was the warning to essentially retail to say, hey, you guys are going to be left holding the bag if you don't exit first. I'm giving you guys this chance. I want to hear your thoughts on this idea that was CZ in the right or in the wrong to share the idea that they are going to liquidate such a large portion of the FTT market cap. All like everyone had a chance. You had 24, 48 hours from the time CZ posted it till the moment they started liquidating their holdings. Like, was CZ doing right by retail, or was he just trying to just do whatever he wanted to do and prioritizing himself?
I can't think of a more clear sign of, again, there are people who are in the contingency, and I don't know where they get their rationale that this crypto network, this crypto world is somehow a transitional technology for freedom, for individuality, for individual sovereignism. What you have there is essentially a bunch of little central banks that are doing their own thing, and without any sort of regulation, without any sort of mechanism for transparency. And they say they're transparent. They say they're for the people, but time and time again, you see that these people they look at what centralized fiat does, and these crypto foundations, these crypto companies, they say let's make our own central bank and let's make our own structure where we are the benefactors of the Cantillon effect. And so therefore, long story short, going back to CZ, when he's warning people, Binance is just as messed up as the others. It's just that they had an opportunity to say, hey, we're not going to be a part of this, and we're giving you the retail investor and a rare opportunity of getting ahead of the eight ball, of front running, I think the term is, I forget the term. Yeah, front running a trade, so you can make a logical, rational option with your assets. And the logical, rational option isn't, oh, sell and sell, buy, sell. Trading isn't the way to our prosperous, abundant future. Bitcoin's utility of self custody and anti theft, these are the kind of things that, as CZ is warning you of this, your next step is to say, okay, you see where the counterparty risk is. CZ represent himself as, hey, this is what can happen. Just because he's doing it now doesn't mean it won't happen again with someone who won't tell you. All the shadowy whales out there say, yeah, you know what, we're going to bail on our I don't know, Ethereum Max token. Paul Pierce was just fined $1 million for shilling that thing.
Way to take the talking point from tomorrow off. Now I'm just fucking with
Oh
you.
yeah, our show. Yeah,
Did you even look at it? That was literally in the show notes for the other
You didn't
show.
even
God damn it,
respond.
Ulric.
You didn't even respond when I sent it to you. I thought, oh, you must have ignored it. Okay, but yeah.
Oh, see,
But yeah,
in
and you know where
fairness,
I'm going.
I found that like separate, so I didn't even know you sent that to me. So that's on. You know what? I'll take the blame on that.
Oh, look
I'll
at
take
our
the blame.
Telegram. That's so funny. Okay, but
I'm
yeah,
off. You
there
will
you go.
learn so quickly how bad I am at texting and messaging people.
I'll teach you. I'll teach you. You're the younger millennial here. So anyway, so long as you see where I'm getting, CZ gives you the warning. The next guy won't give you the warning. But you're going to go back to your centralized custodial services where they are playing with your money the way FTX was for years. They're sending it to who knows whom in these different conventions, whether it's Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter. They're taking your money, they're sending it to other people to make use of it, where you should be holding your money and making use of it the way for your own incentives. You don't need them for to stake something so you can get a fake coin that gets materialized for you. All you're doing is contributing to essentially a decentralized central banking system of unlimited unit printing. That's just a decentralized version of theft. And the more you have, the more you steal. So think about that. It's immoral. Tomer Strolight wrote the moral case. I forget the term, but it was back in August of 21, the title, but the moral case against Ethereum, and all of these altcoins, these shit coins, all they do is copy that one. What we should be doing as individual sovereigns, as people who care about their future, care about the security of the time-earned work that they've accomplished, is we should be self-custodying Bitcoin on cold storage and using that as a means for savings, as a means for exchange where possible, and hopefully one day as a unit of account of the world.
There's a lot to unpack, but I want to go back to something you started talking about at the very beginning of this, which was this idea of like, where is the founder's mindset of these sort of shit coins and how they come up with the idea of, well, why don't we become the central bank? And I think that's the inherent flaw in all of this. I myself fall into a camp where I believe that no human being on earth, whoever your favorite all-time investor is, whoever you think is the smartest man, if you're an Elon Musk simp, if you believe Warren Buffett is the GOAT, whatever you think, I don't think any individual human being should be put in charge of the monetary system that then is relied upon by even 5 other people, let alone the entire world. It goes back to just, the old saying of absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you unfortunately introduce so many new factors. Dude, I can sit here right now, look you in the eyes and say, like, if I ever did that, like if I was ever given the opportunity to be in charge of the Federal Reserve, or Vitalik calls me tomorrow, is like, hey Q, you're now in charge of Ethereum. Like whatever you want to do happens. Like I can sit here and tell you, like, I'll have the most honorable like intentions, but you're telling me like I could also just like walk away with billions of dollars? Like, I'm sorry. That moment is different in that moment when the opportunity is there versus right now when it's just being talked about hypothetically in the back of your mind, like, oh, I'm never going to be the head of the Federal Reserve. So with that, that is just my perspective on it. That might not be yours. That might not be anyone in the audience's. But with that perspective, I genuinely believe the the actual most valuable part about Bitcoin is the fact that Satoshi remained anonymous, stayed anonymous, and no one to this day has access to that wallet. Now, those things can change. Those things can. Fake Toshi can turn around one day and say, okay, you know what, guys? I'm full of shit. This is the person who was Satoshi Nakamoto. He died a number of years ago. I've known he's been dead, or you know what? I actually have him locked in my basement, and he can't come out and say that he's actually Satoshi because, like, I just keep him locked in my basement. I do the polyjuice potion with him, take a snippet of his hair, cut some fingernails, put it in my polyjuice potion, and then I'm Satoshi Nakamoto. um, like, I genuinely believe that anonymity is a level of security that is not provided by the US dollar. It's not provided by any of your favorite shit coins. I'm talking to you, Monero gang. Like, no. The fact that, like, the fact of the matter is, if you believe the Federal Reserve has destroyed the global financial system, all you have done, if you're now an ETH maxi, is say, like, yeah, Jerome Powell can't handle it, but you know who can is Vitalik. Like, that's all you've done in a nutshell. So, Ulrich, I've been talking way too much. Please, would love your thoughts. How crazy do I sound? How right do I sound?
You're
Where do you agree? You
you are
disagree?
an you are an admitted you're an admitted sinner, and that's what it is. You recognize the debaseness of human nature, and that if you were put in a situation like I was miming right there, I would do the same thing. There's a meme out there where a hidden camera, the dude is stealing money. You have money all over the elevator. The guy was looks like he got done working out. He's like, oh, it's like, hey, can you help me out? Can you help me put this? Yeah, sure. Can I get some? It's like, yeah, you can get some. And he started putting some money. He put it in the suitcase and he started putting some money. Why? Because in a situation where theft is readily available, as easy to grab as a teacup right here, um, are you actually, you with all your piety and all your perfection and your high morals, are you going to resist that easy sin? And the catch is with Bitcoin is that even if you thought, no, there's no way, it doesn't matter how much you promise, how many promises you make, how much everyone trusts you. Bitcoin is near trustless. Now you have to trust the entire network to abide by its own incentives. That you have to trust that the network doesn't go basically wacko, bizarro. Like, but again, these types of things, even if Satoshi were to come back, his coins, all he has is the ability to use his coins. He doesn't have that. Even some of my finance bro friends don't realize that just because you have most of the coins or a large plurality of the coins does not mean that you control the network, that you can stop someone else from spending or allow someone to debase their supply. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. And so if his million coins were to somehow start moving, all that would mean is that, hey, he's a participant in the network. He doesn't get any higher level privileges. And that's the beauty about that monetary system that we just don't have. There is an admin privilege at the Federal Reserve for the politicians, for the people who are near the politicians. And Jeff Booth always talks about this, where the game is rigged and people are going to get sick and tired of playing. And it's up to the propaganda machine, the whether it's MSNBC, Fox, CNN. They're not going to tell you that your incentives are, I mean, that your game is rigged. They're not going to tell you that that you're playing with loaded dice. So these are the kind of things that as people learn. Again, I got into Bitcoin in 2020 and got into it, meaning I started learning about what it means to be a Bitcoiner, holding, using, and over time that number is going to rapidly grow, because people are going to start waking up as they continue to get stolen from by the people that they have voted in, or that they hold in such high regards.
So I gotta ask because you keep putting the cup in the camera. What's your favorite Star Wars? All right, let me start with this because I'm a Star Wars nerd. Favorite Jedi?
Um, I, Luke, Luke Skywalker.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah,
I
I mean
like it.
that's how I started. I started watching it when I was 12 years old, and it's like that's my superhero. I don't know why. He's just like the farm boy, kind of innocent. Yeah, that was it for me.
Respect, respect. Okay. Then favorite movie, I'm assuming comes from that trilogy.
You
Which
go ahead
one?
and guess my favorite.
I'm gonna just say number 5.
Yep, it's the best one that was made. It was probably one of the best movies ever made. It just had everything.
Mm,
The
mm.
bad guys won, so it gave you that cliffhanger. You knew that there was going to be a sequel, but the way they fleshed that sucker out, it was that's I could watch that one without watching the other ones forever.
I gotta get some challenge flags. So I'm gonna challenge that.
Okay.
I agree that number 5 is up there. I will caveat it by saying episode 5 is the best within the line of the 9 movies. However,
Oh, you're a Rogue One guy.
I love Rogue One.
Yeah, I know.
That
No, I
is
mean
the
that's
greatest Star Wars movie, full stop. It's better than episode 5, in my opinion.
I am a I guess I'm a celebrity simp, or a character simp. So the fact that none of those characters really appear in any other movies or stories. I've read 50 Star Wars novels, all from the previous, from the old ones from the 90s and 2000s. I'm probably more of a nerd than you. I hate the Disney ones, but Rogue One is great. I loved
Did you
it.
watch
I think,
Andor, though?
yeah, I watched it all. That was great.
I think Andor was solid. I
It's
am
not a
counting
movie.
this. Fair. No, fair. But I'm defending the fact that, spoiler alert, every character dies in Rogue One. But at least they like figure out a way to give you something with those characters, because it is a very like the coolest part about Rogue One, and what I think they did so well is the fact that they set it up so that you could end Rogue One and start episode 4, and it's like
Seamless.
0 seconds difference. It literally ends where the episode, like, that is, for me, that is the way you should always do a prequel. Just an example of doing it like that very well, in my opinion, was actually Better Call Saul. They did a really good job with Breaking Bad
I
and then
never, yeah.
connecting that dot.
My old roommate used to watch Breaking Bad all the time. I just was skipping. I was too busy playing video games. Robert's probably
You've
watched,
never watched
yeah,
Breaking Bad?
like 8 episodes. I was too busy playing League of Legends.
You fucking Sam Brankman Freed nerd.
I
All
know.
right, I'm gonna side story on Breaking Bad, and then we will get back to the actual
We're
interview.
fine. We're fine.
When I got really into Breaking Bad in college, I was also like smoking a ton of weed, surprise. And I would like smoke weed when I would get off of work and then like drive home. And I will never forget, there were 2 separate occasions where I'm driving on uh like I'm just driving down in Torrance, and straight up I the other side of the street, a cop is driving, and I just have in my head, I'm like, oh my fucking God, they fucking know I'm so screwed. And for whatever reason, I thought I was like in the Breaking Bad universe. Like, that's how engrossed I got into the show. Bro, just do yourself a favor and watch the pilot. And if the pilot doesn't convince you to watch the rest of the show, I don't know what to tell you, because that is arguably considered one of the greatest like pilot episodes in TV. You have
Okay.
homework.
Okay. I mean, sometimes I save movies or TV shows for years, so there will actually be something to watch as media becomes more and more trashy and repetitive. So I think it's probably about time to go down the classics route, and I think I'll pull that out. Probably I'll try to start watching before the conference in Miami. Maybe finish it on the plane or something. Oh, how many seasons? I can't. There's probably
It,
like 6 seasons.
I think it was technically it's five because they split the last season into two parts.
Huh.
Um, I will say this: it goes through this moment where it's like really hot, and then it's a really slow burn for
Mm,
like a couple seasons. But
that's
when
okay.
it starts to pick up, it just ramps up so quickly. I think Vince Gilligan, the creator of the show, excellent storyteller and writer, and really knows how to like keep that slow burn and does not disappoint with like every question you have. He really does a great job of like, nope, don't forget. Like I didn't forget. Did you forget this from three
Hmm.
seasons ago? Well, I didn't, and
That's
this is
good.
how it ties back now.
I like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Uh,
why I'm such a stickler for the Star Wars thing, because when they pop in a little cameo from on Mandalorian, I'm like, ooh, like the Rogue One scene. I wanted to chime in. That was a Yeah, I know that scene, that last one when they were on Tantive 4 and Vader was walking through like Charles Barkley. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. So it's like, and like those inklings, I think that's what storytelling is about. It's a beautiful thing. So okay, you convinced me. Breaking Bad.
Love that. All right. Last fun question because I'm having too much fun asking these fun questions. But like, what is your like? What are some of your favorite shows? Like one or two of your like, oh, this is elite TV.
Yeah, gosh, that's the thing. Now the pressure, I'm gonna mess up and forget.
I will judge you on your answers. As someone who worked in Hollywood, I will judge you
Oh,
on your answers.
man, see, no, I'm gonna have to. I'll probably end up appending this with a Twitter post later, but no, all I can think of is Game of Thrones, and that's such a boring answer. There's other things. I
No.
know. Gosh, there's other things. You know what? Hold on. White Lotus is good. You haven't watched White Lotus? It's newish.
I'm just pretending to be frozen and acting like I didn't hear that to give you time to come up with a different answer.
Hold on, man. I can't. I literally studied. Okay, I'm going to look at my article here. I'm going to look at my article, the Declaration of Monetary Independence. Shout out Will for talking about it yesterday. And then you started. What's your favorite TV show? I'm like,
Dude,
thanks.
this
I'm
is
going
late
to
night TV, bro. We ain't taking this shit serious. This is late night TV.
I'm like, let
If
me
you thought
focus.
this was
Let
a
me
serious interview, you should have gone on Simply Bitcoin.
Austrian economics. Okay, what did Murray Rothbard say? What's your favorite TV show?
Hey, the best part is like I didn't even smoke weed today, so this is just me. Honestly, if I probably smoked weed, we'd be more on track.
That's fine. I yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that one. The easiest question I'm gonna have to pass because I knew I'd sell it short because there's something good out there. I'll let you know tomorrow. That's my
No,
homework
I
for
mean,
that
look,
show.
it's fine. Like I never got into White Lotus. I
It's good.
I tried and it wasn't for me personally, but I know that it was like big on the hype train in this last season. Everyone fell for it. I will say this for my fellow like Game of Thrones fans who were just like let so down by the ending of Game of Thrones. Um, I had the chance to actually meet Benioff and Weiss one time after the show ended, and I was like, all right, I have a theory, and just thumbs up or thumbs down. You can also walk away before I finish, but they were like, all right, let's hear it. And my whole theory was rooted around the fact that at the end they talk about how history is always written by the winners, and we throughout the whole series had only ever seen Daenerys' story told through her perspective because she always won.
Uh-oh.
And so for the first time in the final season, spoilers, um, her story wasn't written by her, it was written by other people who witnessed it, and they actually could tell the story of like how awful she could be.
Mm.
And in reality, she was that awful every time in the past, but because she wrote
It
her own
was so
history, she
portrayed in
was.
a rosy way. Wow.
I will say this, they said that is not how they went about it, but they really liked it and that they probably were going to steal that take.
Ooh. History is written by the victors. I mean, we every time we go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and we talk about, oh, look how glorious we were. We brought democracy to Europe, and also also central banking. It's like there's so many things that we as normal citizens in relatively free domains are indoctrinated in. And that's why, education, and the sad part about this is that because history is written by the victors, it's now the victors are now funding their story, Daenerys in Game of Thrones. What ends up happening in our world, the victors are funding their story, public schools. They can't go out of business. They don't make it. They don't create any value, but somehow they survive. And what do they tell us? They tell us the same thing over and over. They tell us they teach us the same history every single year. I was thinking back, like, do we have to learn this same history like every year? Why is that? Why do we have to learn history? Why do we have to learn science the same way? It's so distracting, but we don't, and of course we don't learn how to manage our finances. We don't learn how central banking works. It's
Or just
almost
how
like
to like operate medical insurance. Like the things that we actually need to do on a
we don't.
day-to-day basis, school doesn't teach us. But they told us that Columbus and the Indians sat down and broke bread.
It's so bad, but you know what? The smartest people, quote unquote smart, will say, "Shut up, take your pill. This is what we're supposed to know. This is what's important. Fund education, help out." And public schools are a disease. And and I'm not ashamed to say that. And I wrote a piece about that where it says, the third, I think I wrote it early last year, Bitcoin will actually destroy public education, in my opinion. Some Bitcoiners don't like that idea. It's like, they come from education. It's their world. Public education can't survive in a hard money system. There's a lot of things that will die. And that's one of them. You're going to have to learn another way to educate your future, your offspring, your children, because the government can't afford it anymore if we're on a hard money standard. So pick your side.
Expand on that. Like if you don't mind, like share a little bit about the article you wrote where, a hard money standard will is in essence break the public education system. How does it go about doing that?
Yeah, well, I mean, public education is just like anything public. Public services are funded by anything is funded by the revenue that you generate. So if you are operating in a way that's where you're a corporation and you're creating value for someone, your corporation can only survive as long as it's maintaining its ability to pay the people that are working, that are managing it, they're paying the people that are executing it. And when you look at we're all in Bitcoin because we realize that the government is an inefficient system. It's an inefficient machine. It's never been profitable. Some of the most important institutions, whether it's the post office or schools or parks and recreation, they hemorrhage money. They don't create value. So the way they survive is by government grants, monetary money printing, IOUs in any form possible. And so if that kind of dynamic goes away, if we are truly on a 21 million 21 million standard, or even world standard, or even still 21 quadrillion Satoshi standard, in order for something that's inefficient to survive, you would need to expand the monetary supply. If you can't expand the monetary supply, then something else is going to contract. So either you expand the monetary supply and you maintain the status quo, or the monetary supply stands still and things that are inefficient break apart. And one of those things that I see glaringly obvious that I don't think enough people talk about is how the education system, anything that is partially, and understand, colleges have tuitions and they're gross, and of course because we have a dying fiat currency. But let's just say public schools, oh well, they're funded by taxes. Really? Like, we don't, like, the federal government receives not even enough taxes to cover its expenses. So I imagine the state governments aren't anywhere near that.
Public schools are primarily funded by state funds.
So state funds are, oh yeah, but in those state funds are, yeah, but those state funds are funding by grants. Basically, their ability to say, we declare that you get $20 million to operate. And it's nowhere are they indicating based on our positive tax revenue. They're always in the negative. They're always looking for funding from the state, funding from the federal level. States are looking for funding from the federal level. States don't get enough taxes, and so when it all comes down to it, at the end of the day, they're operating at a net negative. So in a hard money standard, what dies? Well, the things that operate at a net negative. Public schools, what happens? So, oh well, we can't educate our kids. Well, it goes back into the things like who will create the roads, or who will maintain the roads. The roads will be maintained if they're valuable enough to maintain. The schools will be maintained if they're valuable enough to be maintained. And so, in my opinion, schools that create value or schools that run extremely efficiently, I think as technology expands or grows, we'll find ways for communication to get to more people faster. And you can see that through all the different online education sources that are out there. If there is a way to encapsulate that or capture that in a strategic form to educate people as they grow in life, what you have is a substitute for the system that couldn't survive unless you have the ability to create money. So, I don't think I could dive into that to a 4,000, 4,500 word, essay in a few minutes. But long story short, if you don't create value in a Bitcoin world, you're going to fall apart. And only the institutions that do create value for others, and value for value means, hey, I find you worth me giving my Bitcoin to. That means that those entities will survive. If you look at that school, say, yeah, you're not getting my Bitcoin, that school is going to go under, and there's nothing that a government can do about it. So, whether it's that, whether it's entire countries, whether it's sports and entertainment, these are the things that happen on a hard money standard. If you don't create value for others, you're going to pay the cost. There's no government daddy to run to and say, bail me out. And that's a good thing.
How great would it be if we just didn't have the government to bail out all these dying businesses and industries that, frankly, like, the economy has dictated and said, we don't need you anymore. But unfortunately, we still live in a fiat standard. And
And it's not
unfortunately,
capitalism. Yeah.
oh, well, don't even get me started.
Nope.
Listen, very few Bitcoiners have read this book. I'm going to tell you, you need to read this book, Ulric.
You should flip your screen so it's actually so you're mirrored. It's now
boom.
There you go.
23 things they do not tell you about capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the most important books I've ever read in my life. I read it about 4 times. I got it my senior year of college. Shout out my homie Kyle Foreman,
good for you,
CEO of Crown. It breaks down so many of the fallacies that we learned in college, that we learned just coming up in this community, in this world. And it hammers home that final point that you said, we don't live in capitalism. We don't. And whether you're on the left and you hear Bernie call crony capitalism, or you're on the right and you hear Tucker Carlson say whatever his go-to phrase about the fallacies of capitalism, of the system that we have now, we should all be on the same page that while capitalism is what we want, it is a far cry from what we have. And
that's funny because I use the same term, crony capitalism, and I don't consider myself on the left. So it's kind of
all right. So you're a secret Bernie supporter. I love that for you, man.
Oh my gosh! Don't tell my mom.
Sir Ulric is coming out of the Bernie Sanders closet on this Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023, year of our Lord.
Thanks. All right, that was it. You caught me.
I want to transition slightly. You alluded to just, sports, and we talked a little bit about before we started the show, we talked about your other article you wrote about how the way the sports industry has gone, that is also not going to really last on a Bitcoin standard. Look, as someone who I studied sports in college, like the financial aspects of sports. That was one of my majors because I just nerd wanted to be a sports agent. Like that was my whole shtick. I have very adamantly said this moment in history, at least in the history of sports, will be known forever as peak. This is the highest valuation that teams will ever go for, that players will ever get paid, because it's so inflated. And I don't know how much you follow just like the way, and I want to set this up because there were a couple of holes in your article. Chief, like the first one I want to point out, and you're absolutely right on this. The fact that you could be a journeyman player in today's NBA and you will make more money than MJ did on court. Like that's just based on the way the NBA has designed their minimum contracts specifically for veteran players, and just the salary cap today is enormous. For context, the salary cap during Jordan's years was the equivalent of what Steph Curry gets paid in one season. Like that's how much we've escalated. And it's due in large part because insane TV contracts, you're introducing new revenue streams, both international as well as, little things like jersey patches and other forms. And I give a lot of credit to the NBA Players Association for helping to get these deals because at the end, it should be the players' money. Like the players are making this. Like I'm not tuning in to watch Steve Ballmer or Mark Cuban. Like I'm tuning in to watch Luka Doncic dunk on Russell Westbrook. Um, like that's what I want to see. So while I think that it's crazy to like really recognize like, oh shit, like how is I don't the scrubs I can think about
Well,
right now.
I remember this one, and this was the first time I heard about that kind of dynamic. Not Sasha Vujacic. Oh, Sasha Vujacic. He made more than Charles Barkley did in his playing career, I believe. And that's the kind
We
of
cannot
dynamic.
disparage Sasha. He's a family friend.
I think he's a great shooter, and that's that's fine. Yeah, I'm not trying. Yeah, you know where Sasha
Big
came
Al,
from.
don't come hunt me, man. I have nothing but love and respect for you and your family. Do not hunt me.
But and it's okay, and I never said that, oh yeah, I understand that marketing is way better than they had in the past. The advertising opportunities are better as media's expanded. There's more ways to get your message, Mercedes-Benz message, to the consumer as they're watching an NBA game versus, hey, we're on NBA on NBC and you're going to see a commercial and maybe a banner. The
And there
problem
were only
is
like 2 or 3 games a week that NBC at that point in time was airing.
that's right.
So look, I want to interrupt you and just say
Oh,
this
I'm
though.
sorry. Yeah.
Like Sasha doesn't have that happen though without Jordan's generation, and Jordan doesn't have the contracts he was having at that time without Magic's generation, and Magic's not having those contracts without Dr. J and his generation and Wilt before him, and so on and so forth. So it's, they are standing on the shoulders of the generations that came before. So as people with very low time preferences, like, right? Wait, why does that sound? That was right,
High
right?
time preferences.
Yes, I was like, that sounds wrong. High time preference. Jesus Christ, it's way too late at night for me to be on camera. Um, with people with high time preference, I think we have to appreciate a little bit of that nuance without holding it against people just because they were born 20 years later.
Totally agree. And where I'm coming from is I expect players to make more money as the monetary supply expands. That is, I expect as technology enhances, I expect smart people to leverage it and create more value. And that's what has happened to a good degree. Where I find an issue is there's so many ways how you can qualify or quantify inflation, and there's no one trick to answer it all. I will say that tracking the M2 monetary supply as an indicator of how large and into monetary supply. I don't have the website open, but in a nutshell, it's basically how much money has the government printed. When you consider how much revenue an entity can make based on a certain level of monetary supply, then you can actually normalize that. Yeah, there's the M2SL. You can normalize that against, okay, well, how much did your company make? How much did you make as a, for a, in your salary? If you were to go back in, let's just say 2020 and say, oh, I made $100,000. And then you go to 2022 and say, oh, well, I made $100,000. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you that, are you making the same amount of money? Not according to the world you live in. If you live in a certain economy that has 18 trillion as opposed to, maybe, 6 trillion, well, then, yeah, it says 15 trillion. If you have 15 trillion versus 4 trillion, well, then you're making a larger slice of the pie in 2020 than you were in 2020 than you were in 2020. So I equated that. I kind of did the same comparison, but from a ad revenue, ad revenue from the NBA and NFL. And I'm not going to pull up my website, my article right now. You guys can check out either at Satoshi's Journal or my website. But when you look at the NFL's and NBA's ad revenue, it goes up from 2010 to 2022. Yeah, you can scroll up and you can see that. It looks good if you don't consider, well, how much did the actual monetary supply increase? And so what you see is when it's normalized against that, it's both of those entities are stagnant. So they're essentially, as the money is becoming less efficient, their ability to gain revenue is sort of tracking with its growth. So generally speaking, they're gaining as much of the economy of the economy as they did in 2010 as they do in 2022. That's how I see that. And so all these big numbers, these record amounts of money, this record amount of money for Steph or LeBron or Kevin Durant, that's just a form of the Cantillon effect. Now, here's another thing. When you see that if Steph Curry were to play in 2000 and he were to make, say $6 million a year, but his ability to make 30 million a year, it goes up 6 times. Is your salary that you as an engineer or a teacher, is that going up 6 times because of the monetary inflation? And the answer is no. So what you can't help but surmise by this evidence that entertainers and athletes and the teams that they play for and the companies that fund them they are all a part of the Cantillon effect, and you are not. And so, are they really creating more value, or are they just getting more of the newly printed money for themselves? And so these are the kind of things now you think about, okay, well, what happens in a Bitcoin standard is, the future Steph Curry, 20 years from now, that's breaking all of Steph Curry's records, is he's going to get record amounts of money? Well, maybe, but at the same time, will he just get his due worth or his due percentage of the entire monetary system? And is it going to expand because he's entitled, everyone's entitled to a raise, or does he have to earn that money based on how much value he brings to people? So I think that the NBA, the NFL, I think all they've proven is that they are able to stay in pace with the monetary printing. And if we were to print more money, I think that we would see we would see larger salaries. And if we don't, then I'd see the salaries maintaining a standard. And therefore, if you go further down my article, I'd say the sports entities that persist or thrive in a inflationary environment that are essentially funded by other people making money, WNBA, certain college sports, if they're not creating value, if they're not saying, hey, we're spending $100 and by all the people coming to see us, we're making $110 10, if they're not doing that, guess what? They go away like public schools. And it's a tough reality to face. But a hard money standard means that you have to create value for other people or you do not survive. And it makes us all better humans. It makes us all harder working humans. We're not, you have this entitled millennial generation where it's like, I deserve a raise. I see that all day on LinkedIn. I deserve a raise. Why do you deserve a raise? You deserve a raise because you woke up in the morning. um, these are the kind of things that our generation and maybe a little bit of the Gen Xers went through. But in a Bitcoin standard, on a Bitcoin standard, assuming we ever get there in our lifetime, that's going to be a world breaking change. And I try to write about things and conceptualize. And of course, I appreciate you, bringing in your inputs on my articles. I wish we were talking when I first wrote this one and the other two, education and the federal government. You could have given some value added input. You're better on finance and economics than me. But these are the kind of things that we have to think about. If we don't think about it, then we're only really in Bitcoin for the idea that number go up. And that's not the case. Bitcoin revolutionizes, when we talk about Bitcoin's a financial revolution, Bitcoin's an economic, a world revolution that doesn't, that basically cleans out the world of scammers, grifters, and laziness. And that's a good thing.
So I pulled up because this used to be one of my favorite when I was a kid and I subscribed to Sports Illustrated. And every single time Floyd Mayweather Jr. would have a fight, they would sort of show his purse, and every consecutive fight he would have would be like, oh my God, this is the largest purse of all time. But Sports Illustrated used to do a really good job of actually like pointing out, like, if we adjust for inflation, we have yet to actually see someone surpass the Muhammad Ali George Foreman purse, which today now is worth, or actually no, this article was from 2020. So in 2020, so not including two of the worst years of inflation in the last 40 years, so this purse would actually be worth even more. At the time, on October 30th, 1974, these two men fought for a purse of only $5 million. That in 2020 was worth over $510 million due to inflation. You have then Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather coming close, and then McGregor coming close. But then you also have two more Muhammad Ali fights. That again, the purse is nowhere near this level. But to just sort of like hammer home the point you're making, like, the Floyd Mayweather fight looked like, oh my God, this purse is insane. When in fact, it was on par, if even slightly below, the all time greatest boxer's purses that he was fighting for consistently 40, 50 years before Floyd Mayweather Jr. was fighting his rigged fights.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but if you fight Manny Pacquiao at the end of his career just to keep your
It was at
undefeated,
the end of Floyd Mayweather's career as well.
yeah, but like, Pacquiao would have beaten him 5 years earlier.
Okay, that's fine. Gosh, we'll have to have a special one on the Bitcoin ballers about boxing. That's fine. But I appreciate your point. I think they were using the dollar years of whenever that article was written. And the funny thing about Bitcoin is that you would just be able to compare every boxing match on the Bitcoin standard or MMA match, henceforth MMA, because the central entity takes all the money. They don't pay their fighters. But boxing,
Yeah, we
you'd be able to
support you,
go
Francis Ngannou. That's my dude.
right on a Bitcoin standard. You don't have to adjust for inflation. Bitcoin 21 million is 21 million. You'll be able to say, hey, I was generating this value in the year 2050, and in 2055 I was generating that value. There's no weird economic trick, finance trick to compare the value. It's just money, and that's so
Absolutely.
important in our world.
Yeah, I think, like, to your point, like, you would be able to see if we were living on a pure Bitcoin standard. Let's just use the NBA because I think that's easiest example that we've been pulling from.
Yeah.
You could very clearly, in a Bitcoin standard, define and say, okay, this athlete is generating more eyeballs more jersey sales, more ticket sales, and as a result is being paid more than what they would have been paid, what they were paid 10 years ago, but you can clearly define why rather than, well, we're making more money, like money's falling from the skies and the TV broadcasters are throwing money at us, so everyone gets to make more money. Like, no, 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 no. We don't need to do that. Putting my agent hat on, not a chance in hell that ever happens. At least while these athletes continue to be represented by third parties. I do think that changes. I do think that will actually go by the wayside over the next 20 years. But I digress because we are at the hour, and I want to make sure that there's time for one more thing that's more fun. Honestly, this episode was just pure fun. So, Ulrich, I'm gonna just put you on the spot and say you got to come back so we actually do a Bitcoin episode because
Yeah, it was some Bitcoin, but that's cool.
I got distracted a little bit, but you disrespected a man.
Here we go.
And I got an issue with your ranking system. Oh,
you want to give everyone some context?
That hoodie with this.
Oh, you took off your hoodie.
Shout out my boy, Mamba Bryant.
I feel like Kobe. Okay. You want to give people context, or are you just going to start ranting?
I'll put my headphones on right now so that we can do this.
Make sure you're speaking in the mic. You're getting angry.
All right. So, Ulrich, when we scheduled this interview, sent me his rankings of all-time greatest basketball players. Look, I have no issue that you put LeBron over.
What? Shit! See, that's what happens when you're all angry. You start making mistakes.
I've dropped that book so many times, like the spine's so messed up, and I'm just mad that I keep damaging that book more than anything.
Yeah, you don't want to damage that. See, I love Kobe
it's really fucked up now. All right, I digress. So, you motherfucker put Kobe Bryant as 22 on the all-time list. My largest grievance with your ranking system, which is rooted in analytics, is flawed. Not only do you have Kobe Bryant at 22 for whatever godforsaken reason, and if you fucking sit there and tell me it's because he won however many Defensive Player of the Year trophies in a row, how the hell is Rudy Gobert ranked higher than Jokic? How? Defend that.
You want me to do that one first?
Defend that.
Okay, so I'll do the Gobert versus Jokic. Okay. So for context, I wrote a few articles. I've been passing them out to a few of my friends. I'm actually working on my third website, and it will be focused on this little concept I have. And it's an objective way of describing who exactly were the best basketball players in the NBA. Forget college. We're not thinking about that. And so came up with 3 pillars of identifying, greatness. And this is from talking to people for years. The way people determine greatness, objective only, not talking about MVPs or all-star games. People judge greatness by cumulative accomplishment, meaning their whole body of work, their dominance, meaning how great they were while they were actually in the game, and then their peak. One good example is, like, I compare Tim Duncan to Kevin Garnett. My high school buddies would say, "Oh yeah, Kevin Garnett, is better than Tim Duncan." I'm like, really? Because, like, when you look at, Tim Duncan has all this stuff, but all this whole body of work. Kevin Garnett was like, boom, boom. But they say from 04 to 05, there was no one better. And so I took all these concepts and I said, okay, we have a peak assessment of greatness, a dominance assessment of greatness, and a cumulative or longevity assessment of greatness. Jokic is insanely historically dominant. I think I have him as the 6th highest. And so for that reason, yeah, while he has played, he has essentially done better than almost anyone who has ever played, except for 5 other people. And that's not the point. The other people in front of him, not the point. Rudy Gobert basically has a sense of dominance as well, that brings him high on that list. But because he's played longer, his cumulative numbers are better. So over time, as Rudy Gobert continues to be Rudy Gobert and Jokic continues to be Jokic, he will pass him up. But again, if you take this mindset, well, it's like, Jokic is better than him. Okay, well then, if that's the case, then we don't give Kareem his due for playing that long. You don't give Kobe for giving his due for playing as long as he did. So by assessing everyone on an objective like Bitcoin, objective balanced standard that no one we're not handpicking. I'm picking AI because I'm judging him on how many points he scored. I'm picking Jordan for how many rings he got. We're saying cumulative greatness, longevity, dominance, and peak. Average it out. Where do you fall? And so that's it. It's just math, bro. It's just math. Bitcoin is math. My standard is math.
Have you ever heard of the saying, if you put garbage into your formula, you just get garbage results?
Sure.
You put garbage into your formula, my friend.
Win,
And
win
this
share.
is the two big flaws.
Go
And
ahead.
like I've run into this issue myself where unless you have access to advanced tracking software that can give you statistics that are not publicly available, like closeout speed, how often is a player's uh like his man left wide open, like how many pass deflections does he get, like those intangibles on defense are not defined well enough on the box score statistics that unfortunately end up populating a lot of the things that you say. So someone like Rudy Gobert, his career is literally inflated on the basis that he got a ton of defensive rebounds and a ton of blocks. But when you actually watch the man play, there is not a doubt in my mind that Shaquille O'Neal, who is notorious for not playing defense, is a better defender than Rudy Gobert. There is no doubt in my mind that Dwight Howard's consecutive Defensive Player of the Year awards were far more valuable than Gobert's simply because there was no real competitor to Gobert, no challenger to Gobert winning those Defensive Player of the Years. Possibly Giannis, possibly.
But remember, Q, I'm not judging on defensive player of the year. I'm judging him by the
But
value of a block shot in a very very widely accepted statistical standard, and I'm judging him
not
by
all
the
block shots are made the same. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but like,
yeah, that's fine.
would you not agree that like a Marcus Smart block shot over anyone is more valuable than Rudy Gobert, who towers over every player in the NBA, including
No.
other centers?
Would you say
You
that a
don't think
Rudy
so?
Gobert 3-pointer is more valuable than a Marcus Smart 3-pointer?
No.
Why? Marcus Smart is a guard. He's 6'5". He works on that all the time. Rudy Gobert is 7 feet tall and has the ability to affect the game that a 6'5", 6'4" guard doesn't. And that's what we have to. That's what we're talking about. Judging things on a slanted standard. Of course, Shaq is great. There's a lot of 7-footers out there, and Shaq was one of the best. I have Shaq ranked at number. He's tied in a 4-way tie with at number 5
Which
with
is
Dave. Go ahead.
the, so this is the other issue I have.
Go ahead.
David Robinson just does not belong that fucking high. All
David
right.
Robinson had in an era where pace was at an all-time low. Literally, games were 73 to 74. David Robinson was averaging in the high 20s points a game. When you fast forward to if you were to compare that pace to modern day, David Robinson would probably be averaging 35 points a game because the game is faster, people are moving faster, and he'd probably have more
There's
of a
no
more
shot.
of a jump shot.
No,
Excuse me.
but he didn't. See, you
Oh, of course
you
I.
assume,
Of course I don't. Of course he didn't. But guess what?
but you assume that he would just, and that leads into the real issue I have, and this is the main issue.
Okay.
Players like Kobe and players like Shaq, you held it against them for playing for as long as they did.
Yes,
And look, Shaq should have literally the second he won that All-Star game MVP, he got it with Kobe, he
he
should
should.
have literally taken the mic and be like, okay, I'm retiring. I'm never gonna be this good again. I retire.
Totally
He
agree.
milked it a little too long. Even he in his docuseries on HBO like was like, yo, my Celtics thing, that was dumb.
And
Like I
Phoenix and the Cavs. And I agree. Him, Kobe, Dirk, Dwayne Wade, they all stayed too long. But guess what? Kevin Garnett as well. And I mentioned that.
but you
I
hold it
it,
against these players and then you assume on the other end of the spectrum that look,
but remember
I think it's a fair assumption to say that if Jordan didn't go play baseball, like he's probably still as dominant in those 2 years.
right.
Fine. You can't make that assumption about a young David Robinson just because, hey, he went to serve his time in the military. If he didn't do that, young David Robinson would have been great. How many rookies do we see who need a season or two to get
I'm not
acclimated to the NBA?
I'm not again, none of my numbers come with assumption. All I say was that based on these three
No, no, no,
pillars.
no, no, but they do because your formula
Mhm.
holds it against a player for having a bad year late in their career. But
Yes.
I think you need to add some sort of a way to actually hold it against a player for in their prime years actually not playing. Because I think that is just as harmful to your legacy as playing when you're 40 years old at a very low level. Like Jordan playing for the Wizards, stupid. If
Yeah.
those 3 years were literally put in the 90s, we're talking about an 8-peat potentially. You're not even debating or
Yeah.
doubting Jordan
Totally
because it's
agree. And
eight
look
in a row.
what but here's the punishment for them not playing in their prime. So he doesn't get those cumulative numbers. He doesn't get an opportunity for another peak season. That's the punishment. So Michael Jordan's cumulative greatness is lower than it could have been if he just kept playing. That's David Robinson's cumulative or longevity is lower than it could have been if he just started playing at 21 instead of 24. Or if he didn't retire at 35 and he retired at 39. But guess what? If he retired at 39, he may have been dragging a knee up and down the court and his dominance may have gone down. The catch is that we don't want to penalize people for having a shortened career. If I don't include the dominance, Larry Bird goes lower because Larry Bird didn't play that long. Magic would go lower. Magic didn't play that long. So I include the dominant greatness for people like George Mikan, Jordan, who, yeah, they didn't play 18 seasons. So and guess what? The peak greatness, if you happen to have 3 seasons that are just out of sight, like no one could touch you, you're going to be counted amongst the all-time greatest I've ever played because for a moment in time, no one will forget your name. I include that for Kevin Garnett, Oscar Robertson. Oscar Robertson barely played. But guess what? Because the seasons that he did play were some of the best ever, he can be ranked number 20. And that's why I can't, even though Kobe, you know, he play too long? Yes. But were there a bunch of people who played too long? Yeah. And out of all the people in his era, he was better than most of them. I put him at 22, but there's just too many things in his formula, his greatness, where it's like, the time that he was playing, was he truly dominant? And the answer is no. He wasn't as dominant as you remember. That's
Okay, I'm taking. No, you're literally. I just no. The what?
oh, you cut me off. You played admin. See, this is why we gotta get rid of central banking.
With a straight face that Kobe Bryant was
Straight
like,
face. Straight face. Look at his stats. Okay, when he had his best statistical season, how did his team do in the playoffs? Oh, they didn't. First round exit. First round exit. You look at
you think Smush Parker and Kwame Brown are gonna help you in the NBA playoffs
nope.
ever?
Nope. But did Mo Williams help LeBron get to the finals? No. LeBron pulled them on his own self and pulled them to the finals and actually won with them. No, he didn't. No, he made it to the finals and lost.
Yeah,
But
they got swept. But
yeah,
I'm gonna pull this up because I actually
you're gonna pull up my
remember
stuff, or you're gonna
that.
pull up some other stats.
No, no, no. I want to pull up the '07 Cleveland Cavaliers.
Bums.
All right, honestly, we're getting way too into the weeds and the basketball stuff. So
We can
this
always
is
have this on Thursday.
we're we'll dive into it tomorrow. I'm boring all of the diehard Bitcoiners out there who thought we were going to have a Bitcoin conversation here. I'm sorry, my ADD really kicked in, and his Star Wars mug just got me excited.
I
So,
include dominance for Larry Bird's for the guys who didn't have that big year, that big career. If everyone's only allowed 20 years, then fine, we would take it out. If everyone only plays 15 years and that's it, fine. But people play 10, 15, 7 years. That's why
all right,
Jokic will just
let's.
continue to go up.
My final question for you is this: What name me one NBA player in today's NBA that needs to retire?
Oh man, Chris Paul. That's it, 100%. Chris Paul right now is having his worst statistical season, and I'll talk about this. You remember I was talking about this Phoenix. They're not going to do well with trading for Durant. He's having his worst statistical season since that Rocket year where everyone thought he was done, and that was his worst statistical season ever. So that season and this season now add on 4 years, and he's 5'11". He should be done. That's it, Chris Paul.
Okay. I think Russ needs to retire, but he probably
Russ
hates
will
me.
still contribute somewhere. He should have gone to Chicago.
All right, we will dive into all of this and more on tomorrow's episode
This is
of the
yeah.
Bitcoin Ballers podcast. Ulrich, I will leave you with the final word before we sign off. But just as a reminder for everyone watching over on Twitter, we are live on YouTube as well. Please, 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 would love it if you guys hop on over, like and subscribe to the channel down below. And tomorrow I will be joined by none other than the Bitcoin Shooter, and we're going to be talking about Bitcoin content. I promise it will be more Bitcoin focused. Ulrich, I will leave it to you for the final word.
Yeah, I appreciate Q for letting me on his show. We have fun on Bitcoin Ballers, but it's a pleasure to always to have the opportunity to engage and talk about this monetary revolution. Check out my website, sirulric.com. Check out my other website, the Declaration of Monetary Independence.org with Mark Mariah and Mike Hobart. We expect to be at Bitcoin 2023 again, where we'll be able to have a large 8x10 printout where you guys can sign the declaration, take pictures with it, and celebrate the monetary revolution that you guys are living in right now. I'll see you guys tomorrow.